Anything particular you want to talk about today?
No, I'm just excited to be here and being with you like-minded people and hearing what you have to say.
Good.
Your topic seems really interesting. My daughter's 2 and she's really into storytelling right now. So
Ah,
I've been trying to remember just different fairy tales or stories that, I'm trying to remember. I was trying to tell her the tortoise and the hare last night. I
interesting.
couldn't remember
How long do you think stories have been
So I'm
around?
speaking of,
Fairy tales.
I'm interested in hearing the topic today.
How long do you think fairy tales have been around?
They've been around for, ever.
Yeah.
I feel like they've been around for forever. Everyone's always told folk tales, fairy tales, whatever they are. There's always some sort of tale that we tell, right? To entertain our children or to teach them a lesson or.
Always, always.
Mhm.
Uh, Sally, I said hello to you, right? No, I didn't. Hey, Sally,
Yeah. What?
tell me about your take on fairy tales. What do you think about fairy tales?
Oh, I think they're wonderful. A wonderful vehicle for children's imagination. Um, Fairy tales also, depending on what they are, they also give children a sense of empowerment in a world for which they have no control when they're little. Um, they are uh, they can be very colorful. Um, they can be very dark.
They can
And I
be
think
very
they're all
dark.
valid. Yeah, and I think they're all very valid. They
Wow.
were a tremendous part of my childhood. Um, there's a couple that stand out for me. One was Alice in Wonderland was, I think, my all-time favorite. And then I have a book that I've had since I was 4 years old. I'll dig it out and show it to everybody later.
Great, great.
Called The Road in Storyland, and it was edited by a man named Watty Piper. And the illustrations in the book are just beautiful. And it was my constant companion when I was a little kid. And then when I had my son, we read from it almost every night. And my husband and I just purchased another copy of it because mine's falling apart. And I hope to be able to give that to my son to pass on to his kids when he has them.
That's
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
That's
So.
wonderful. Well, you're right. Storytelling goes way, way back. Katrina, I think I've lost your picture, but how are you doing? Huh? Oh, you're in your car, Katrina? She's muted him.
Yes, I'm in the car. I'm sorry. We keep going through these areas that are not really good.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we'll just let you listen in when you can.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, let's go back to the beginning of fairy tales. What I'd like you to do, and a couple of you are already kind of ahead of me on this, is to think about the fairy tale when you were young, whatever age you want to pick. I'd like you to remember the name or the story of your all-time favorite fairy tale. If you have something to write down, would you write down the name of that fairy tale, please? And it doesn't matter whether the name is correct or not. And as best you can recall, what was the byline of that story? What was the story about? If there was a so-called moral of that story, what were they trying to tell children in the story? And do you remember the book in which you heard the story? Is it one you read yourself or one that somebody read to you? If who read the story to you? Now, it might be more than one person, but who can you remember actually reading you a story, a fairy tale? Now, how do most fairy tales begin? They always begin the same way.
Once upon a time.
There you go. Good girl, Paula. Once upon a time. So it could be any time, correct? It could be anywhere, anytime. Okay, I like to go through real quickly and have each of us talk about what was our favorite fairy tale. So Laura, let's start with you. As you can best recall, what was the name of your favorite fairy tale?
Did you say Laura?
Yes, Laura.
No, okay. I think Snow White.
Ah, good. What you like about Snow White?
Oh, that she had all these little guys running after her and paying attention to her and being kind to her.
And doing what to her?
Being
Oh,
kind.
they were kind to her. That's how you recall the story.
And I love their
And
names.
what were they?
Grumpy and Sneezy, and those are the two I remember.
Who else was there? Who remembers? There was Dopey.
Sleepy, bashful.
Yeah,
Doc,
Bashful.
Doc.
Yeah,
Doc.
Doc.
So we all remember some of these, don't we? Interesting how these stay with us. So as you remember, Laura, what was the story really about though? It was about this gal and all these little people. What were these little people doing?
What were the what?
All these
what- I
little
didn't hear
people that were with her, what were they doing?
They were very busy.
What were they busy doing?
I remember them being very busy doing.
What were they
things.
doing? Do you remember?
Were they taking care of the forest?
Okay.
Or were working? I remember the hi ho song.
It's off to work we go. See, what we'll see now with people of our age, we're going to start remembering the Walt Disney versions, which is fine. They were based on the same thing as the
Right.
Brothers Grimm. Brothers Grimm have gotten over the centuries, eons and years. Matter of fact, fairy tales go back to, are you ready for this? The Bronze Age. They're very,
Wow.
very, very old. Folklore goes way, way,
Wow.
way back. So they always had something that they were trying to impart to people, generally to children, about some of the mores of the day. So what were these little people doing for Snow White? Do you remember? They were working and they were doing hi ho, it's off to work we go. What do you think the message was there? What was the message you got from that, Laura?
I guess that they were just kind to her. She was for me, she was like lost, and they were taking care of her.
Okay, so she was kind of a lost soul.
I feel like she ran away from the castle.
Ah,
Somebody being mean to her.
okay. And so they kind of came to the rescue.
So she ran away to the forest and found all these little people.
Interesting. I remember a lot of these story settings were around Germany or that area, and there were a lot of forests. So it made sense that these stories all took place in the forest. We don't see many forests where we live right now. Most of us don't, but they were very much predominant in those years. So that would be kind of the main theme of that. As you recall, Francis, what was your very favorite childhood fairy tale?
So what comes to mind is Jack and the Beanstalk. And,
Ah, classic.
yeah, and my older brother used to read it to me at bedtime. So that was kind of cool that we got to have that that time together. You know, when we weren't fighting, he was reading.
And what's his name?
Craig.
So Greg was paying one-on-one attention to you.
Yes.
Now, as a child, how important is that for any adult to pay one-on-one attention, or I guess in this case, maybe a semi-adult? How old was he at that time?
So he was 4 years older than me.
So in your eyes, he was pretty much of an adult.
Well, I mean, I was a little kid, so I was, I was probably 5. He was probably 9, something
Uh-huh.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think that the moral of the story was?
Agreed. Don't get greedy.
Ah,
Be satisfied with what you have.
How does that fit into your life today?
You know, I mean, it has come full circle. I was talking earlier how I moved from when I moved from Wisconsin to Sausalito. I'm in Arizona now, but I had a 3-bedroom house, 1,200 square foot, you know, with a full basement and a 2.5 car garage, and I moved into a one bedroom apartment. So, but now I find myself again with a 2-bedroom house, but I really try to live minimally, you know. And I've got things because it's my parents' house that I'm buying. I've acquired some things that I need to start purging again. So live the simple
Interesting.
life.
So do you find your life is coming full circle?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you know, I look back and I see everything that has happened, you know, all of the fragments of my life coming together into one place.
That's interesting. What did the moral of the story mean to you personally?
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess to be satisfied with what we have.
Yeah.
You know, that the more you acquire, the more you seem to want, and it's all just stuff. You know, so what's important now is relationships.
Isn't that interesting? Because when a lot of us spend our early years of acquiring, the years of acquisition, getting stuff, getting things, collecting things. How many of you remember you collected things when you were younger? Whatever, we could collect all kinds of things, you know? And now you look at that and go, God, what a lot of clutter, you know? But at the time, it seemed to me like it was really important to help define who we are and how we lived our lives. So I think what we're all going to find is as we talk about these fairy tales, these stories, that the Brothers Grimm were quite right, that we do find ourselves living out these stories. And we live them out over and over again, almost in a compulsive way, because we're trying to work something out in our own lives. So very interesting. Sally, what was your favorite fairy tale?
Well, I had two. One was Alice in Wonderland, the original, and one was called The Star Dipper.
Ah,
And along the lines of being kind to other people, the Star Dipper is all about that. This little girl, her mother is not feeling well. They live in the forest,
uh-huh.
and there's a well, but she has to walk quite a ways to get there. And her mother's thirsty, so she goes and she takes the pan, the dipper, and she goes to the well. And on her way back, she sees a thirsty dog, and so she gives him a drink. She sees another animal, she gives him a drink. She sees a woodcutter, he's very thirsty, she gives him a drink. And every time she gives somebody a drink, the dipper starts to glow and glow brighter and brighter. And by the time she gets home, she gives her mother a drink, and then the dipper becomes a star in the sky.
Ah,
And they are rewarded with her mother gets well. And it's, if you do kind things to others, kindness will come to you. And that's what I got from that story. It was one of my favorites. It's a very short little story, but it's very beautiful. And
was
it's out of,
would that pretty well summarize where you are in your life today?
yeah, pretty much. This is the book I was talking about, The Road
Oh,
into
I love
Fairyland.
it. And look at how it's written. Like this,
Yeah.
Yeah,
not in a straight line.
like the winding road. Yeah.
Yes.
Every
It's a winding
story
road.
in there has a lesson, but very beautifully done. There's the story King Midas is in there, and there's the rabbit and the hare, or the tortoise and the hare. There's how the rabbit caught the sun. There's a whole bunch of wonderful stories in there. And there's another one that's very similar to what Francis was saying about being happy with what you have, and it's called the cap that Mother made. She knits this beautiful cap for her son, and throughout his travels, people offer to buy it from him, ending with a king who offers him his crown and his kingdom. And he says, "No, I really want my cap that my mother made," because it meant something to him. It was made with love, and
Yeah,
all
I
these
think
other people just wanted to acquire it.
interesting, isn't it?
Hmm.
How does that affect you and your work you do today? Can you relate to that?
I think so. Being part of our ministry gives me an opportunity to officially, if you will, be kind to others and do what I can for them. And in my henna business, I'm doing something kind and very special for each of my clients. Um, and I have witnessed it bringing happiness to people. So it's, and it makes me feel good too. So.
That's amazing. Hi, Katrina. You arrived, huh? Hi.
You're back inside.
We were talking about fairy tales. We lost you again. Can you hear me, Katrina?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've been struggling with my controls. My phone did something kind of weird. Um, so I heard that you're talking about story tales. My one of my favorite ones is The Ugly Duckling.
Ah,
The Hans Christian Andersen one. And I like that one because it shows, you know, basically, treating someone differently because they're different, or treating them bad because they're different, is just The Ugly Duckling was treated so horribly. It was a swan egg that got that fell into the clutch of duck eggs, and they just thought he was an ugly duck his whole life, and they treated him so horribly. But when he came into his own, he was this beautiful swan, and then everybody loved him. And but the moral for me is just really not to treat anyone differently because they look different, or they're just not like everyone else,
yeah.
because you never know what they'll turn into.
Isn't that the truth?
Mm.
How does that affect the work you do today with that kind of philosophy?
So where I am right now, I work with a lot of youth, and they're all really different. COVID has changed things a lot for us, but I have made connections with a lot of kids. Um, First look, they seem off, really rough around the edges. But when you get to know them, they're the sweetest kids. Some of them do need a little bit of, correction as far as mannerisms and things like that, because they haven't had that at home. But at first look, you might write these kids off, but just getting to know them, they are awesome. I still get phone calls from them because we made that connection, but that is something that's helped me, not just with the kids, but with other people. You just never know. Like, give them a chance and you'll be really surprised.
Yeah, kind of a coming of age story. I think that's wonderful. Your kids would like to do the fairy tale thing too. They love this. They
Yeah.
love this. And you can really see who the people are in their stories and
Yes.
why the person chose that particular fairy tale. There's always a reason for it. They don't just drop out of the air. They're
Yeah.
there for a very
I very much connected with that myself growing up. So it made a very big impression on me.
What did it tell you about yourself that you feel comfortable in sharing?
Uh, well, I never quite fit in. I mean, I was literally the ugly duckling of my family.
Mhm.
I even had a family member call me that. Like, growing up, I never fit in. I didn't look like anyone. I didn't act like anyone. I was always like the weirdo, bringing every sick and hurt animal that I could find home to try and, heal them and help them. It
So
was just
you could
different.
identify with the animals that were having difficulty.
Oh my gosh, like all the time. I did it so much. My grandma used to be like, don't bring another animal home. So I set up a hospital on the back porch. And so that's where, we kept them. I was just always the oddball, weird child, if it wasn't that, it was seeing and hearing other things. So that really, that's something that has been all my life.
Interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
We don't really think about this much in our conscious minds, but when we stop and reflect on it, we can see how these fairy tales and these early story identifications is how we saw ourselves at the time as a child. And the term they use in psychology is projection. We can literally project ourselves into that role because we so identify with it.
Mhm.
It makes sense to us. It's like, oh yeah, that feeling is familiar. It stays with us. And there's something about the feeling of that fairy tale that's always with you when you have it. So I was asking about the book, and you were kind of show us the book you had. But it's you can always remember the people that read you the fairy tales. Can you remember anybody reading to you, Katrina, when you were little?
Nope. As soon as I could read, that was all I did. I always surrounded myself with books. So that fairy tale was one I read myself. We had like the whole collection of Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, and that book is long gone now. But I would spend hours reading everything from that, Alibaba, just all kinds of stuff. But that was my favorite one.
Well, the book is lost to history, but it lives through you
Yes.
and you telling other people about that and the way it shaped your life, the way that identification process helps shape your path. And we oftentimes don't think that these early childhood identification stories are shaping our lives, but if you look back, they definitely are. And they're very much with us today. That little girl or little boy in you is always going to be there. It doesn't change. Jenny, what's one of your favorite fairy tales?
I was a huge fan of Peter Pan.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Tell
And
us how, in your memory, what was Peter Pan all about? We don't care about the accuracy of the story, by the way.
What's that?
We don't care about the accuracy of the story. We just care what you remember.
Oh, the thing that I remember the most is, well, first of all, I was read to by both of my parents, and my dad graduated with his master's degree when I was 6 years old, and his minor was elementary education. So my dad read to us constantly. You know, he would gather us around his feet, and he'd be in a rocking chair, and he would read the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and just all kinds of things. He loved to read poetry to us too. So we had a lot of that going on. And so that was neat. And mom read to us too, but that was also just really a special, real special time with dad. But what I remember most about Peter Pan was the whole concept of no limits. As long as you had fairy dust and happy thoughts, you could fly. And you could run away and go anywhere you wanted and fly to Neverland, where you never had to grow up and do any responsibilities or any of that stuff. You could just make up your life as you went along. And that really appealed to me as a kid, because I was constantly like running away, not because I was unhappy, but because it was an adventure. I watched the Little Rascals, and I saw that if they ran away, they always found a well-stocked cabin in the woods. And they would go there and live, and they'd get along and cook and just play and be happy. So that's Peter Pan to me was just with a couple of special attributes, you could have no limits and do whatever you wanted. And I really like that idea.
When can you be the best Peter Pan you can be? Under what circumstances?
Anytime you want. You just have to go there in your head. And that's the other thing, that I got from that story was that, again, it's just the idea of there's really no limitations other than what you put on yourself. And that kind of stuck with me. And I think that's one reason why I got attracted to religious science, because that's the basis of their contention is that, it's up to you. You get to be the creator and you can do whatever,
So it would really have appealed to you on the
Mhm,
basis of making an individual decision about what you want to do with your own life
mhm.
and being more or less having input into your own life, not being at the receiving end of life,
Right.
but also being at the end of life that push the idea forward. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. How about anybody else? What do you remember about how your fairy tale seems to come to life today? Francis, what did you say your favorite fairy tale was? Did we talk about yours?
Yeah, I mentioned Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, that's a classic. What did you like about that? What appealed to you about Jack and the Beanstalk?
Um, the magic of the beans, number one.
Yeah,
And his adventuresome nature of, like never been up a beanstalk before, and just, the bravery it took to climb the beanstalk, and then, the bravery as he encountered the giant, and and then in the end, when things got too overwhelming, he cut the beanstalk down. It's like, can't go there again, cut that off.
was there another Beanstalk?
No, I don't think so. I think he just planted the one. And he learned his lesson that you don't go messing with other people's stuff and stealing their golden eggs, because it's going to get you into trouble in the long run. So when things got uncomfortable, he cut down the only pathway to his trouble.
And he was done with it.
Yeah,
It was over.
right.
Interesting. How does that reflect in your own life?
Cutting out the pathways to well, I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I still have all kinds of pathways to trouble.
Well, so you're a work in progress.
I am.
What is one of the things you're progressing on right now?
I'm progressing on.
Oh,
I went, spiritual growth is a big focus for me. Um, and and I told a friend the other day, and maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I mean, it's all love and light and spiritual and being good and kind until I, until we have to deal with people in the raw, right? I mean, sometimes it's not as easy as we would like it to be.
as the
So,
fairy tale.
but I'm always looking at and analyzing my own behaviors and my responses to things so that I can do it better the next time. It's like, where did that come from in me, and how can I heal that so that my approach can be different the next time.
That's very interesting. So is that kind of how you see yourself approaching life?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Chuck reminds me I haven't talked to Katrina. There you are. I can't see you, Katrina. Now I can. Did we talk about your fairy tale? I think we did. Oh, it's Adriana. Yeah, we didn't talk about your fairy tale.
Actually, the Ugly Duckling was one of my favorites as well,
Okay.
Um,
Now
along with The Little Mermaid and Princess and the Pea.
okay, let's take both of those.
So I guess with Princess and the Pea was one of my parents both would read to me that and The Little Mermaid. And with the Princess and the Pea, it's a girl shows up to a castle and she needs a place to sleep, and the queen doesn't believe that she is the real princess and puts a little pea underneath all these giant pillows and everything. And the girl wakes up all sore from the pea hurting her, because I guess a princess has delicate skin and is delicate and can feel a bump in all the pillows and everything like that.
So the story is about sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because ring a bell in your head.
Oh yeah. Constantly reminded that I'm too sensitive.
Now that's so interesting. I also had, that was my favorite fairy tale too. What was most commonly said about me, about through my family was, "Oh, Bobby Lee, you're just too sensitive." And so
Mhm.
I started thinking, "Oh my God, I'm too sensitive." And then one day I realized, do I want to be insensitive?
No.
I mean, it's like, come on, that's not so bad. But the way it was said to me was obviously it was not a good thing to be.
Mhm.
One doesn't aspire to be sensitive. So, how has your sensitivity directed your life, Adriana?
I mean, for me, I'm constantly told throughout my life, even to this day, that I'm too sensitive. But I feel that I feel for everyone. I feel all around. And even when I was little, I would apologize for running into the furniture or something, like, oh, sorry. Like, I always felt like everything had feelings, and I was always connected to those feelings. And I do, and one thing that I try to build a shield up now is I feel other people's sensitivity or other people's feelings that affect me and my moods as well. And that's something I'm trying not to let my sensitivity thrive in, I guess you could say.
How does your sensitivity work for you?
For me, it makes me love. It makes me feel warm and happy when other people are feeling good as well. When I do, I just think feeling is a beautiful thing to do.
So, are you glad you're sensitive now?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't want to be insensitive, but being around people who don't have empathy, it's hard for me. It's definitely an emotional roller coaster, but in a good way.
Well, see, I think a lot of us spend our lives trying to apologize and make it okay that we do what we do. It's
Mhm.
almost like we're all saying, will you give me permission? Will you? Like we're all a bunch of parking tickets. Will you validate me? Will you validate me? Will you validate me? Rather than just saying, yeah, I'm a highly sensitive person. And
Definitely.
make
And I
that
think
really
like
okay with me.
that's something I'm finally like what I was talking with one of my good friends about it because we're both are very sensitive. I'm like, yeah, I'm sensitive. It's just who I am. I'm not going to change now. Like I'm a sensitive person.
And saying I'm not going to change now, but I think the bottom line is, do you want to change now?
No.
No, of course you don't. Because you're seeing the value of what it does in your life's work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Very
how it directly relates to your life's work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely does.
So it's amazing how, yeah. Who's with us on the telephone?
Cindy. Hi, everyone.
Oh, hi, Cindy. Did you hear
How
the
are
beginning
you?
of what we're talking about?
Fairy tales, I do.
Yeah. Do you want to talk
I
about your favorite fairy tale?
I don't know if there's enough time for that. I'm just kidding.
We can make time for you.
In a nutshell, I was thinking about that as I was listening, because I never thought, what does my life remind me? What fairy tale would my life remind me of? So as I'm sitting here thinking, I came up with The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
And the reason for that is because that voice, I'm going to say the wizard, has always led me in my life, which is God. And I always listen to that inner voice. And that inner voice led me in my life and helped me to persevere an alcoholic, abusive mother, and helped me to find my purpose, which is a hospice worker. I love my job. I do the CERT team in town. I love that too. So I've been truly blessed by listening to God in my path in life. And so my fairy tale is a happy one. It's about perseverance. It's about certain things not defining who you are. And so my fairy tale is a happy one.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how you did not let that limit you. You saw it rather as a stepping stone to do something else with your life.
Absolutely. I always, as a little child, had this little way of me, which was this: I'll show you all one day. I'm going to be somebody, and I'm not going to be, my mother. And with that being said, God blessed me with forgiveness and 25 healthy years with a sober mom. So I learned a lot in my journey in life, which has helped me to help others, teach
So
them perseverance.
what's the
And
thing you're most, what are you most thankful for the fact that you had an alcoholic mother? What was
the
the,
ability, she gave me the gift of the ability of learning that addiction does not define who a person is, and that perseverance is real, and that you can persevere, and with the right, people and guidance, you can do anything with the help of God. And I'm a perfect example of that, because everybody in my family thought I would become a drug addict or an alcoholic. And I showed them all, didn't I? That little inner voice, I did show them all. And who would have ever thought? And on top of that, I'm a minister and a bishop in life. Come on. That's like a story. You couldn't even make that stuff up. So yeah, I'm very proud and blessed. I am. I'm in a good place. And I help people at the end of their lives prepare for going home to God. And that's a blessing to me. That's a real blessing. And I've been doing this work for 46 years. So
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I love it.
So you owe mom a lot.
Hmm?
You owe your mother a lot.
Oh yes, I learned a lot. Absolutely.
Her addiction taught you a great deal.
Yeah, she did, but I'm still learning, because now I have a son that drinks and he's like 23. So yeah, a lot of stuff has come up with that. But things are getting better with him. Just trying to guide him down the right path, and got him into some weekly counseling, and he's doing it. So that I'm grateful for. He's at least now listening.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe you could talk to him sometime about the blessing there is in his having alcohol dependency and what he can learn the lesson from, so he no longer feels the need to be dependent.
I have tried to talk with him, but when he drinks, he can also be very abusive with his mouth, if you will. And it's hard, because sometimes that, makes me think of things, because you can't help it. It brings you back to the time when you had to handle that kind of behavior. But with that being said, I have been praying like a hound, and asking my guides and my angels to please assist me with my son. And I believe it's happening before my eyes.
Yes.
He's met a nice girl, and she doesn't tolerate that behavior. He's going to weekly counseling. He's working a full-time job. So I'm trying to stay positive. But with that being said, I also have 3 clients that I work with, pretty regularly. So life is full, but it's all full in a good way. Because it's all good things. If you're doing good things to try to help others, amen, right?
Absolutely. And the joy of that too, the hidden joy of that, is as we help others, we help ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little payoff there for us. And there's nothing wrong with being rewarded for what you do. Unfortunately, sometimes a lot of us have kind of a warped sense of I shouldn't receive any money or any value for what I'm doing, because I'm doing it for the love of God or whatever. Why can't you have both?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't?
Yeah.
Why limit what we can have? I mean, that
Right.
doesn't make any sense. The only limitation we have is what we put on.
Right. This is true.
So Charlie, you want to tell us about your favorite fairy tale?
Maybe next week, dear. We're running low on time.
Oh, are we? Okay, well then let me sign off and let you take over.
That's not me, it's Francis.
Okay, Francis, since you're running this whole shindig, we'll let you get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you all so much for giving me your time and sharing your time. It's been a blessing to work with you all.
And likewise with you.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Namaste.
Namaste.
You gonna start?
Wow. What's happening next week, Francis?
What's happening next week? Does anybody have a burning desire to talk about a subject that they feel passionate about? or maybe not so passionate? I don't know.
Mm.
The book I'm reading on interfaith is really good. I think we could go back and look at that again.
Okay, I want to get a copy of that and start reading it myself.
We
But
ordered
yeah,
it,
so-
but I haven't gotten it yet.
What's the
I
book?
ordered it.
Practical
Practical interfaith.
interfaith. Yeah.
So Charlie, did you wanna lead the discussion then next week?
Sure, I'll be happy to be a moderator.
Because I don't know if has anybody else read it yet?
Well, can I have the name, please, of the book?
Practical interfaith. And Nikki, tell them who the author is.
The author is Reverend Stephen Greenbaum, B-A-U-M, Greenbaum. And you can get this on Amazon.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
And if you can get it and just read the first 2 or 3 chapters, they set the tone for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Did,
so,
did Paula or Nikki have a burning desire to talk about their favorite fairy tale?
Paula?
No.
Just curious.
Yeah, we didn't get around to everybody. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
That's
That's
okay.
fine. I learned a lot from just listening because I had no idea what I was going to talk about. So it's like, oh, okay, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So,
I relived my childhood vicariously through you.
Well, before
the interesting thing for me was that I don't remember anybody ever reading fairy tales to me. I read them all myself.
Really?
Do you remember a fairy tale? Paula?
Oh,
I read them all the time to my grandkids.
I don't think she can hear me.
Paula, you're muted.
okay. Yeah, I had a lot of them. I could identify with just about what everybody said, but I kind of like Hansel and Gretel because I'm basically a problem solver, and that's what they did. They solved the problem of the witch. And I also got a big kick out of, I was brought up with adults are always right, and they proved that one was a no-go because she wasn't right. They got rid of her. They outsmarted her, and I identify with that quite closely. And I've always done that. I've always outsmarted the authority figures and done things my way. So yeah, I'm definitely Hansel and Gretel.
That's good.
Paula, it's so good to hear your voice, my friend. I miss you.
Oh, thank you. It's good to have one. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Well, since we're
Amen.
talking about interfaith next week, I would like to make a comment, and that is about as an interfaith organization, we're letting go of dogma. And in my adult opinion, I didn't feel this way as a kid. In my adult opinion, I feel like fairy tales tend to put a lot of shoulds and expectations on people's being and behavior. And so what I was able to learn through the fairy tales, such as Cinderella, things like that, the happily ever after doesn't work just because the book says so. And there's a marriage, or a union of 2 people. So it's all up to us. And that's kind of why in this ministry, we're coming together saying, look, we don't have to be what those stories said literally. We can interpret, like you said, Bobbi, this was a brilliant exercise in turning all of that around in such a way that we're all really wonderful beings. And thank you for the books and the stories and the fairy tales that some of us reject.
I wanted to suggest a book that I've used for, I think I've had this one for about 40 years. It's really an amazing little book. It's called Positively Mother Goose. And it takes all of the Mother Goose stories, most of which are kind of depressing, and it changes them. So just as one example, the one about Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? The one in Positively Mother Goose goes, Mary, Mary, extraordinary, how does your garden grow?
Like
Good
that.
deeds are the power that make my mind flower. Good thoughts are the seeds that I sow.
Sweet.
And so,
Great.
the whole thing is like Tom Tom, the piper's son, invited a pig to go on a run. You know, so there's no violence. There's no, you know, it's
Or
just
stealing. Yeah.
Positive.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
if you can find a copy of that, that's wonderful for reading to your grandkids or your children if you have young ones like our
Jenny, do you have an author for that?
Do I have what?
Do you have the author for Positively Mother Goose?
I don't remember, and I looked for it just now and I couldn't find it. So,
Okay,
but I'll
no worries. I'll Google it. No worries.
okay, yeah, Positively Mother Goose. It's
What's good
Thank
for the
you.
what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
I love it.
I think I told you this joke before. I'm going to tell you it again anyway. They open a new restaurant here in San Clemente. It's called Karma. It has no menus. You go in and get what you deserve.
I love that. Restaurant.
I love your compassion.
That's great.
I love that.
We
So
love
Katrina had to leave, but she very much enjoyed the session and would like to come back again.
wonderful.
Great. Always welcome.
Does
Is Miss
anybody,
Sally? Are you here today, Sally?
Excuse me?
Are you here,
What's-
Sally?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Sally. Just saying hi.
Love you, dear.
I feel like I'm Cindy in the dark over here. That's all right. I'll get it together one of these days and get on the iPad.
There you go.
okay, if
Well, we're glad to hear your voice. If we can't see you, at least we can hear your voice.
Yes. I miss y'all.
We miss you too, honey. Very much.
So who's going to do a closing prayer?
You are.
It might be a fairy tale.
That's okay too.
They become our favorite.
Okay, let's see what I can conjure up here. As we have come together in the joy of fulfilling our lives, we've got to witness the beauty of creation and how our life has been impacted by fairy tales and many other things. And now we are knowing that we are co-creators, that we can move out of what we've created into something new. We can be born again and again and again and again. So the divine mind that expresses its life in all of us, through all of us, is a living example of essential divinity. And that divine spirit, that spark, is in all creation. And it creates no divisions, no separations. And it heals all wounds. And so we acknowledge that healing power within life itself right now. And we bless all those people in the world that are suffering from any reason or any cause, mental or emotional. And we offer our prayers of love and light and power. And know that each of us, no matter how ill we seem to be, can find that spark of love, intelligence within ourselves that carries us through this life and through the next. So at this time, let us bring into our consciousness the people that are close to us that we would like to offer healing to. You can say their names and take yourself off mute.
And
Mary, Dale,
Jean,
Kent.
Jerry, Joan,
Kelly,
Chris,
Mhm.
Sandy,
family.
Katie,
Bobby,
Mike,
Charlie. And as we share our love and our awareness to these people that we care about, that nurturing transcends any walls of separation And we know that they receive our love because we've offered it in the purity of who we are. And for that, I say, thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
So it is.
Amen.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank
That
you,
was
Charlie. That
beautiful.
was beautiful.
Very moving, Charlie.
Love your heart.
Thank you.
You guys have a wonderful week. And thank you for your contributions. I have a lot to think of now.
Yes,
Good to hear from you.
may you all live happily ever after.
Yeah, I love
Well
it.
said,
Oh,
Jenny.
yay. That was a great ending. God bless. Until
Good
next
one.
time.
Love
Good
you all.
one.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Love you guys.
Hey,
See you later.
everyone, stay safe.